That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. Sorry for really no notice on this episode. I just need to get rolling right away because I've got to get downstairs for dinner. So it's going to be a very quick episode. I'm not going to do a lot of preamble here at the beginning, but just a little bit so people have some time to show up and they don't miss me starting to talk about a couple books. So if you're here after the show's been broadcast, you can certainly use the timestamps down in the description to skip ahead to the first review. So anytime I'm doing this, I'm like, okay, what can I do to be slightly entertaining for people that don't want to bother to skip? And I figured I'd just show you something geeky I'm working on. As you all know, I'm a big Wonder Woman fan, and a couple years ago I bought this Wonder Woman Invisible Jet Lego, and I had an idea a couple weeks ago, and I've slowly been starting to implement it. Got all the pieces in for the first big step toward it, and so I have a Lego Giganta. Obviously, she's not yet complete. I'm missing some pieces in the right colors, which is why this piece down here is gray. I want it to be yellow, so it gets like the imagery of the skirt. But yeah, this is going to be basically Lego Giganta. She's got yellow in the back, so we got the imagery of clothing. And my intention here is to get some stickers made up somehow or another, and get proper facial features on that and stuff. Change out some of the pieces for the hair, add some different pieces, stuff like that. Yeah, and we'll have a giant Giganta. Should be a cool thing. One of the things I'm very, very proud of, or happy with, this is basically just based on a lot of the instructions for the Giant Man and the Ares from the official Lego Wonder Woman set. Just that giant minifig kind of design. But the hands for those use like some Technic, kind of like Bionicle pieces, and I wasn't happy with those, especially because they didn't come in this flesh color, or this color tan actually. But they didn't come in that color. And so I had to design the hands myself, and I think I did a really good job. They even open and close, and they actually kind of look, a bit like Lego hands or Lego claws. But the thing I'm really happy with the hands is Jet plus 1 plus Giganta equals, ta-da, and it actually will stand and hold the jet. It's really cool. Yeah, I'm really happy with how that came together. Neat little thing. So, 3 minutes of preamble. Hope people watching this after the fact kind of enjoyed that. I'll of course be posting a full-length video once I get this all completed, get some stickers on her face and all that stuff. But yeah, that's what I got. Anyway, let's go ahead and start talking about what we'll be talking about tonight. All right, so we have Superman, number 10, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, number 5, Zorro, Legendary Adventures, Book 2, number 1, Wonder Woman, number 68, Batman, number 68, and for Trade Talk, we'll be talking about Miss Marvel, Volume 2, Generation Y. So yeah, this will be very exciting. So let's just start with Superman number 10. So we finally get an answer, or we finally get to the conclusion of what happened with John Kent, and so the big teaser that I was actually kind of excited for at the end of like 2 issues ago, so it was number 8, was, oh man, John's at the mercy of the Injustice League, or the Crime Syndicate. That's what they're called, the bad Justice League from an alternate dimension. And he's at their mercy, and then the next issue is like immediately Ultraman just takes John and takes him away. There's no involvement with the rest of the crime syndicate. But then, by the end of that issue, John escapes, and in issue 9, it ends with the cliffhanger of John getting captured or confronted by Superwoman of the Injustice, or the crime syndicate. And so I was like, okay, so this is actually going to turn into a story he's going to have to deal with them. Right at the beginning of this issue, Grandpa Jor-El just shows up and takes him away. It's seriously, it's really not that big a deal. Just we're a couple pages in, Grandpa shows up, and they teleport away, and the fight's done. I mean, it's always possible that Bendis is going to bring them back and do some stuff with them there, but man, that just feels like a wasted opportunity. And then what's like really, really weird is he and Jor-El get back onto this ship, and Jor-El explains, I've been looking for you for years, time has changed, blah, 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 blah. I've gone crazy. And he has John put on a Superman outfit, and then there's immediately a big crisis, and I'm like, okay, so there's the first year of John being like away from Earth, and now it's going to be like another event happening, and it's going to keep happening like that. There's going to be another thing and another thing and another thing that's kept John away from Earth. No, it's seriously, he gets teleported straight back to Earth, and that's where we picked up with him in issue 7 or whatever. And I'm like, really? He spent, like, I'm trying my best, as someone who's honestly more of a John Kent fan than I am a Superman fan. I'm trying my best to, even though I don't like the direction that Bendis has decided to take John's story in, I'm trying my best to be like, okay, I may not like it, but he's got a vision for it. He's going to do what he wants to do with it. And I'm just not seeing the logic to it. I'm not seeing the reason for it. I see no reason that John needed to be aged up for this story. Besides just the shock value of we aged up John Kent. Because all those years that his parents missed, John Kent spent inside a volcano. That's the whole thing. Like, it's 5 seconds of him getting teleported away from his grandpa. Or it's like 5 minutes of him getting teleported away from Grandpa, and 5 minutes of him being back with Grandpa, and the rest of his story is just stuck in a volcano listening to evil Superman. And I'm like, no, just no, that doesn't. I'm Steve Baxi. I have become Steve Baxi. That does not justify its existence. I just can't imagine that Bendis was like, I'm gonna age up John Kent, and not think that was going to create some kind of reaction from the fan base. But I have reasonable level of confidence in him as a storyteller that he would be like, okay, yes, this will create a negative reaction, but I feel so strongly in my story that it has to involve him getting aged up, and this is what I'm going to do, the reasoning behind it. And I don't think it's justified. If I were DC editorial right now, I'd be like, you're really giving me a hard sell on this character who's just introduced at this age, and obviously characters don't necessarily age in comics until we really give a reason for them to. And if I were DC editorial, I wouldn't feel this is a strong enough reason for John to be aged up this quickly. Between this and between an issue of Justice League showing John Kent as a boy again, I'm really getting to the point where I'm hoping this is temporary. Jor-El doing time travel and stuff, and John being sent to a different universe and whatnot. I'm really hoping this is like a time clone kind of situation or something. Let's see here. Akuma Ranger says, that's one of the problems with Bendis. He tends to set up something bigger on a grand scale, but tends to lack on follow-through. Okay. Philip Kelton says, didn't he do that with Venom and Ultimate Spider-Man? Not from what I remember about that story. Maybe at the end of the day he'll go back to being a kid. I really, really hope so. Because this just... I don't think it's necessary, and it just feels weaker. Bendis' best work is often the grounded and even street level, like his Daredevil run and the early past years of his New Avengers. I think his action comics is better than the main Superman book. Yeah, and that kind of goes to your argument, because that is the more grounded, Metropolis thing, whereas this is supposed to be the more cosmic book. Yeah, I can see that. So, I don't know. All that being said, Rogel Zar's back. Lots of pretty art. It's still Ivan Reis doing the art, and I think he is just absolutely fantastic. This is a bit of a 90s page to me, but it worked. Jor-El conceivably has all of Superman's powers, and he still uses guns. I kind of love it. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this one. I was just less than impressed. This book keeps getting a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker for me. We're 10 issues in, and over half of that has been disappointing to me, because that's the half of John Kenton as adult, or aged up rather. I might have to drop this book if it doesn't do anything for me by issue 12. I'll give it to issue 12, and if it's not working for me, I'm going to have to say, sorry, I'm done with Superman. Probably still keep reading Action for what that's worth. Alright, let's go ahead and move on. Talk about Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 5. I mentioned this a little bit on Twitter. I was really, really impressed with this issue. I really like this issue because it starts off with a really emotional scene of Peter finding out that May has cancer and thinking about all the repercussions of that. And then he does the pretty typical superhero thing of going out to go beat up bad guys, fight crime. And he finds like a guy speeding. He's like, oh, cool, I can take out some of my emotions on this. And then it's like, when pulling the guy out of the car, he accidentally breaks his wrist, and he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. And then he realizes it's a kid who's been, it looks like he's been abused by his mother's boyfriend and all this stuff, and so he immediately feels bad, and it's just a really neat inversion of a pretty typical Spider-Man, or not even Spider-Man, pretty typical superhero kind of story. So like this, it's a kid who did something desperate and stupid, and so Peter does something kind of desperate and stupid, tells this kid to get back in the car, and steals it with him. Spider-Man steals a car. I don't know, I was really, really impressed with that. It was kind of a crazy... Spider-Man does something kind of crazy and steals a car and gets the kid away from the cops. Takes him to Dr. Strange's house to get his wrist fixed up, and calls social services to get the kid some help. I really like that. That does so much with things that I like. It humanizes the criminals as the bad guy. It humanizes that. It's doing a lot of stuff there that I just really, really appreciate. And then the book ends with Peter going to chemo with Aunt May. And I really like it. It's a really nice, grounded story, which is what this book was intending to be, and I thought that was really yeah. So I'm really, really liking Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So it's a good book, booky good. yeah, so issue 5 really gets it on track with where I feel it should be. And yeah, just really digging this series. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and go on and talk about Zorro Legendary Adventures Book 2, Number 1. Probably the only person interested in this book. It's neat though to see this like reprint of this thing that's never been translated into English before. It's kind of cool. So this has 2 stories in it. A guy's putting on a puppet show, making fun of the Commandante, and the Commandante wants to arrest him for it. Zorro has to save the day and embarrass the guy, and yada 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 yada. Not really impressed by this one's story. It feels a lot like a retread of a story we did a couple issues ago. But this issue probably has the best art this series has had so far. I really, really enjoyed the art in this first story. Lots of really good dynamic action, really cool facial expressions. I even like the lighting and the coloring on this one. It looks a lot better. This looks more and more like a modern comic and not something that came out forever ago. In a good way. This feels just really, really polished, more so than some of the other art, which felt a little rushed by comparison. So I thought that was really cool. Story number 2 is Zorro and his cousin, and this story was it wasn't the best. It felt a little trite, I mean, really, it did kind of feel like Silver Age stuff, where like Bruce Wayne had an aunt that came to live at Wayne Manor for a little while, and like it's cute and it's fun, but that doesn't consider the ramifications of things. If you give Bruce Wayne an aunt, then it's like, oh well, why didn't his aunt get custody of him and shit like that. And I'm sure there's going to be someone in the comments who's like, actually, technically she was always there, but in this issue of Batman, they established that she wasn't granted into custody because yada, 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 yada. It feels very poorly thought out, is what I'm saying. It feels very poorly conceived. And so, yeah, Zorro's cousin, Don Diego's cousin, comes to town, and he's an upstanding young man, and he's been hearing all about this bandit Zorro, so he's going to stop him. And unlike every soldier in Los Angeles, he's actually competent. He can actually fight, and he can, he's such a good shot. He can shoot a hole through a coin going up in the air and all this stuff. And just, no, I don't. Giving Zorro a cousin is a mistake, but making him so much more competent than everyone else is a mistake, because then it just diminishes all of Zorro's actions. A hero is only as good as the threat they are standing up against, and it's easy to be heroic. It's easy to have courage if you have no threat. If there are no repercussions for your actions, it's very easy to be courageous in that circumstance. Being Zorro should be hard. It should be difficult. Yeah, he makes fools of all the guards and stuff on a regular basis, but that's the thing that makes it impressive. All the stuff like that thing matters. So anyway, his cousin, once he finally gets a look at Zorro, pretty quickly starts to suspect it's actually Don Diego, and then he puts it together, and he captures Zorro and puts him in a situation where Diego has to reveal himself and explain why he's become Zorro. And then after he does, his cousin's like, oh, I had no idea. All right, I'm gone forever. And no one ever heard from him again. So that was, I don't know. It is, I suppose, a notable exception to the rule with the Guy William Zorro show, which was the second someone found out that Don Diego was Zorro, they died that episode. But this is like, the second an enemy found out Don Diego was Zorro, they died that episode. This would seem to be the exception to that, but at the same time, I don't know. Not impressed by that story, and the art feels just as bland, as effortless compared to the other story. That really impressed me. I mean, look at that guy's face there. That's great. That's fantastic. Really dug that. Oh well. Let's go ahead and move on and talk about Wonder Woman number 68. I went and sprung and got the variant cover, same price. I rarely buy variants that aren't the same price. This cover is by Kyle Andrews, who I really dig his art and his storytelling in Renato Jones' The 1%. So when I saw this cover, I instantly wanted the cover just on its own merits, because I think it is an absolutely fantastic image of Wonder Woman. Particularly the way the lighting and stuff is done on the metal bits of the costume. I thought that was great. But also I really like Kyle Andrews, so I thought this was a cool little combination of things. And yeah, he does fantastic art. It makes you look back at Renato Jones' The 1% and see how, dirty and ugly that art is, and it kind of lends to what I've been saying, that the art of that book is part of the story, part of the messaging. So to see just what kind of grace and beauty Kyle Andrews is capable of when he wants to be, it's great. I really dig this image of Wonder Woman. Alright, so this is the conclusion of the Giants War, Iron War, were the first 4 volumes. I'm trying to remember volume 5. But yeah, that was like his whole thing, was he had a naming convention for the chapters, as it were, and with chapter 1 of G. Willow Wilson's run being called The Just War, and this one being called Giants War, I'm like kind of digging that. If we're gonna keep doing that as a thing, I really like it. So anyway, this kind of concludes the chapter, and this chapter was fun and cool and all, but it really did feel more like set up for what's to come, with the whole hunt for Olympus thing that's going on in this run. Wonder Woman and Giganta working together was really fun. At one point, Giganta just kind of calls her out and says, listen, you're doing so much to hold back, and that's kind of why I don't like you, is because you're constantly holding back when you could be so much better than you are, and you're always worried about hurting someone, but you're a god, and you're getting weaker because you're around these people. And unfortunately, Wonder Woman has to kind of prove her right, because Wonder Woman, once she realizes these creatures are not sentient beings, but just kind of stone automatons, she cuts loose and just absolutely crushes them without any help from Giganta. And so that's kind of setting up some interesting questions. I really like the narration that Wilson gives Wonder Woman here. I'm going up. I only half know what I am doing. I do know that if these are merely moving pieces of rock, I need not be so hesitant, even if that means proving my enemy right. And Giganta says, You see, you were holding back. You are afraid of your own power. You're only a hero because you pander to people weaker than you are. If you wanted, you could be something more. You could be a god. And Wonder Woman thinks to herself, I have seen the gods. Power that eats itself from the inside. I do not want that. Or perhaps I tell myself I do not want that. And that's interesting. Wonder Woman's one of those characters that people have a really hard time getting right. And I do have an initial reaction to I tell myself I don't want to be a god. The funny thing is Wonder Woman has been a god several times of several different things over the years. So I have a little bit of like reaction at that, because it sounds like she's kind of telling herself she doesn't want to be superior, yada yada yada. But I got a lot of trust in Wilson based on the first volume of this run, and so I'm very interested to see where she's going, and I'll give her some rope on that one of what she's going to be doing with this characterization, this direction with Wonder Woman. That should be interesting. Anyway, this ends a little bit anticlimactically, but again, this chapter feels like more of an in-between of setting stuff up of what's to come, because the last issue ended with this girl that the mythical creatures picked up pulling a sword from a random lake, and then she comes out of nowhere with the sword and is like able to command the earth giants and stuff. And so threat over, and now this ends with everyone kind of off to new adventures. Giganta is kind of ominous. It seems like maybe she's going to come back and play a bigger role down the line. What is her name? Maggie. Maggie, Diana, and Aphrodite head off to go on continuing adventures and find the mystery of this sword and yada yada yada. So we're just kind of like laying the groundwork for a lot of stuff to come, and I'm perfectly into all of that. That'll be really cool. Yeah. I don't know, it's exciting, it's fun. I'm really enjoying this run so far, and this is, it's not like a great arc or anything, but it was fun, it was cool, it was enjoyable. It's kind of all it needs to be sometimes. Alrighty. Go ahead and move on and talk about Batman number 68. Tom King, quit playing with my emotions. This continues the Nightmare story arc, which has been the most emotional roller coaster ride of this series. It's just such a bizarre series or arc in this series. I've been so confused. And this one takes place in the lead up to the wedding as Selena Kyle's bachelorette party that could have been. This is not what happened, this is just what could have happened as far as Bruce's nightmares go. And so it's about her and Lois Lane continuing their bachelorette party into the Fortress of Solitude and doing all kinds of crazy antics there. Meanwhile, Clark and Bruce have a bachelor's dinner night, and it's kind of awkward and they're kind of bored. And that's the majority of the story. I think there are some highlights. It did feel a little typical, and I don't know. It felt a little like really Tom King that Lois and Catwoman just got drunk on wine. But from there, it got better and it got more enjoyable, crazy, antic kind of stuff. So I don't know, that kind of had a bit of a negative point to me. But then it got crazier, and like there's this pool that makes your body feel complete bliss, and Catwoman just gets shoved into it, and then orgasms. And then Lois Lane jumps in, and then they naked together. So I think they lesed out on the bachelor party. That's going to be my theory. Anyway, from there, they try on super suits, and that was kind of fun and cute. And then they watch the Superman robot strip, which was kind of hilarious. I love this thirsty Lois Lane face. That was probably my favorite bit of art in the entire issue. I really respect that Lois Lane is thirsty for her husband. You gotta respect that. That's a strong marriage right there. Anyway, then they get like massages, and so it's like it felt maybe a little like what do women do at times, but at the same time it felt really fun. Then there was one great line where the boys go to pick them up at the Fortress of Solitude, and Superman says, "You didn't need to come." Bruce says, "It's a long flight back. You might drop her." And Superman says, "I've carried the galaxies without dropping them." And Bruce says, "She's more important than the galaxies." That was some sweet stuff. There was a moment here where we like realize it is part of the Nightmares thing. It's part of what's continuing everything. And that's this conversation between Clark and Bruce, and I really, really liked that section of it. This section I thought was kind of the brilliance of what's tying all these stories together. And Clark says, "This is your worst nightmare, isn't it?" "What?" All this nothing. Your family, your city, even you, everyone is safe, happy, having a good time. All that's left is to relax into it, embrace the joy of not being needed. I am perfectly capable of. This is not a nightmare, it's my life now with her. No, this is why you drove her away. This is the reason she left you on that rooftop. You couldn't tell her, you never told her, never told anyone, but I get it. I get you better than anyone. Why you think I can be married and you can't. I love being Superman, but I hate that I have to be Superman. You, Bruce, you hate being Batman, but you love that you have to be Batman. That, I think, is a really good take on things. Not necessarily true to the character, but definitely something the character worries about. And I really, really appreciated that about it. I thought that was really, really good. And then the issue ends with this shocker kind of thing, and it's like kind of the machine that Batman's been hooked up to the whole time. I love that the name of the story is Solitude. I thought that was really, really good. Really, really impressed by this Nightmares arc. It's been such a strange. It has been an incredibly interesting and yet incredibly strange approach to doing a arc in comics. Because it is by and large effectively an arc of one-shots, but they all connect together and they all fit together in this really interesting way. And so I was really, really impressed by that. It was a really, really good issue. I'm curious how this is going to read all together. That's something I'm interested in, seeing how this all comes together and how it works as a whole. Because I think it's been really good issue to issue, but I don't know how well. I don't know. I just don't know how it's going to read when it's all collected, you know? So that'll be interesting. All right. That does it for single issues, so goodbye all of my audience. No one ever stays around for trade talk, and I appreciate that. Hashtag not salty. Tonight is not my night for recording. Smoke alarm problem in the house, so I will do trade talk some other time this week.